Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are diving into what is honestly one of the most fascinating paradoxes in the history of our planet. I want you to just picture a world filled with these magnificent apex creatures. Wolves, eagles, sharks, lions, all of them just beautifully adapted. They're strong, they're incredibly fast, and they are dangerous. And then, well, there's us, right? How exactly did one fragile ape, an ape who, let's be real, would probably lose a fistfight with a particularly aggressive house cat, manage to outthink literally every other creature on Earth? Why did our species get to become the narrator of the planet while the rest of the animal kingdom remained just part of the story? Well, today, we're going to unpack this whole chain of miracles, evolutionary pressures, and ancient survival tricks that slowly transformed a small, defenseless ape into the most powerful mind on Earth. Let's get into it.
It actually almost sounds kind of insulting when you first stop and think about it, but humans were just simply not born to be the most physically gifted species. I mean, we are up against a wild animal kingdom equipped with huge fangs, thick armor, wings, and built-in super strength. And meanwhile, early humans? We've got no claws, no thick fur to keep us warm, absolutely no wings, and definitely no natural speed advantage. If you were to just drop a human into the wild today with no tools, no clothes, no shelter, and no group to back them up, they would be in serious trouble. We don't have a snake's venom or a bird's ability to fly away from danger. We are completely lacking all of those visible, built-in natural defenses.
So if we were completely and utterly physically outmatched, how on earth did we win? Well, we won because of something entirely invisible. We won because of a brain that became extraordinarily flexible. Think about your own day-to-day life for a second. You don't just solve one specific type of problem, right? You adapt to constantly changing situations all day long. Millions of years ago, in this highly unstable environment where food sources constantly moved and predators constantly adapted, natural selection rewarded that exact kind of flexibility. It favored a brain that could figure out puzzles, remember complex paths, and anticipate hidden dangers. You see, the smartest species isn't always the one with the biggest brain overall, but the one that can use a highly flexible brain to adapt and survive pretty much anywhere.
All right, part one, the social chessboard. Now, dealing with unpredictable weather and dodging hungry predators definitely made intelligence useful, but navigating other humans, that was the original pressure cooker for our brains. It's often been said that social life is a chessboard, and here's the thing about big brains. They are incredibly expensive to maintain. They consume about 20% of your daily calories. And evolution? It doesn't build costly, high-maintenance tools unless they seriously pay off. The payoff for us was surviving in very complex groups. When you live shoulder to shoulder with others, you have to constantly know who is trustworthy, who might be lying, who's forming an alliance behind your back, and who's competing for status. Our brains had to evolve into these highly sophisticated social organs simply because keeping track of all those moving pieces was, quite literally, a matter of life and death.
Playing this social chess game required something psychologists call theory of mind. It's the ability to model the intentions of another creature entirely inside our own heads. Because of the intense demands of our complex social groups, traits we think of as deeply human, like empathy, deception, jealousy, and politics, were actually the very things driving our evolution. A solitary animal living on its own doesn't need to worry about its reputation. But we absolutely did. Every single generation that got just a little bit better at reading minds, detecting a betrayal, and building trust had a drastically higher chance of surviving. Being able to predict what someone else was thinking wasn't just a neat trick, it became a foundational survival trait.
Which brings us to part two, language and shared intelligence.
Having a clever, fast-processing brain is great for sure, but human evolution didn't just stop inside the individual body. It expanded outward into society through culture. Culture is basically this invisible inheritance that makes every single generation smarter than the last, without anyone having to start from zero. Think about a chimpanzee for a second. It can absolutely learn from its own experience, yes, but it doesn't build a massive civilization of endlessly improving stacked knowledge. Humans do. A human child born today doesn't have to figure out how to start a fire, reinvent the wheel, or discover farming completely from scratch. We get to stand on the shoulders of thousands of generations before us. We actually store our memories outside our bodies, and we learn from people we've never, ever met.
And the key to all of this? Language. Without language, any brilliant knowledge simply dies the exact moment the individual dies. Or maybe it passes on in a super limited mimicry kind of way. But with language, thoughts suddenly become shareable. They become complex and cumulative. Our totally unique vocal control, our hearing, and our specific brain architecture allowed language to act as this massive cognitive upgrade for our species. We weren't just grunting quick warnings at each other anymore. We were telling complex survival stories, we were passing down morals, and we were actively planning for the future.
Language completely changed the shape of thought itself, and it allowed our intelligence to transform into a shared superpower. And you know where this shared intelligence really found its home? Around the campfire. Controlling fire was an absolutely massive leap for us. First off, it cooked our food, which unlocked all these rapid, easy calories to feed our very hungry brains. But even more importantly, I want you to imagine early humans sitting around those glowing embers in the dead of night, finally totally safe from the predators lurking in the dark. What were they doing? They were sharing information. They were teaching their children, and they were coordinating the exact plan for the next day's hunt. The campfire was, essentially, the very first classroom and the very first meeting place of early civilization.
Let's move on to part 3, intelligence made visible. So at a certain point, humans stopped just enduring the world, and we started actively altering it. It's been said that tools are intelligence made visible. Sure, other animals use objects. A bird might use a twig, an otter might use a rock, but we did something totally unprecedented. We picked up stones and creatively shaped them. We improved them, we specialized them for different tasks, and then we passed those exact shaping techniques on to others. When a human hand holds a stone and shapes it with deliberate intent, it's no longer just a hand and a rock. It marks the absolute dawn of a technological civilization.
And tools created this unstoppable, compounding feedback loop. Think about it. We make better tools, right? Which directly leads to safer, more successful hunting. Safer survival gives us way more time and caloric energy to just think. And what exactly did we do with all that extra time? We invented even better tools. We no longer had to depend entirely on our fragile biology to survive. We could literally reshape our physical environment to perfectly fit our needs.
Now, you might be asking yourself, why humans? Why didn't some other intelligent species take over? It really comes down to this super rare convergence of 3 traits perfectly aligned in our specific lineage. First up is endurance. We definitely aren't the fastest sprinters, but our persistence allowed us to track game for hours until it just tired out. It let us explore new frontiers and literally walk across entire continents. Second is a surprisingly long childhood. Being completely helpless for years and years seems like a terrible, crazy survival strategy in the wild. But it gives our incredibly plastic brains the decades they need to fully absorb complex language and human culture. And third, imagination. A bird can instinctively migrate, sure, but a human can mentally simulate a shelter before ever building it. We can invent a wheel in our mind's eye before making it a physical reality. We literally rehearse the future.
Okay, part 4, minds outside the body.
So, at a certain point, all this group intelligence and cooperation created systems that were vastly larger than any single person, firmly planting the real seeds of civilization. A lone genius can only do so much, right? But group intelligence, that works miracles. Agriculture eventually stabilized our food supplies. Stable, reliable food meant our populations could finally grow, and growing populations allowed for job specialization, which led straight to the creation of cities. Cities act as these giant intelligence amplifiers. They gather thousands of people, goods, and institutions all into one place, allowing knowledge and brand new ideas to combine and move faster than ever before in human history. And it was in these bustling cities that we invented what we can call technologies of external cognition. Things like writing, mathematics, maps, libraries, and eventually computers and the internet. Writing alone was completely revolutionary because it allowed human wisdom to finally escape the strict biological limits of the skull. We no longer had to rely just on spoken speech and human memory. We started storing our deepest thoughts in symbols on clay tablets, then in books, and now in massive digital servers. Every single one of these technologies literally extends our mind.
Ultimately, we are a brain that learned how to grow outside the body. Being the smartest species isn't just about what's happening inside your own individual skull anymore. It's really about what our entire species can build together. We created minds outside ourselves in the form of legal institutions, global languages, and complex machines. Human intelligence entirely shifted from being strictly biological to becoming deeply technological and civilizational.
Which leads us to our final section, part 5, the unfinished story.
Look, we all know human intelligence is absolutely not perfect. We are flawed, we are highly tribal, and we make some pretty terrible mistakes. But our defining trait is that we have the ability to self-correct. And that deep reflection gave birth to science. Science is, at its core, disciplined curiosity. Humans have this innate, burning hunger to know things, even when they aren't immediately useful for basic survival. We desperately want to know where the universe came from, what a star is made of, and how the human genome actually works. We developed the scientific method to rigorously test our answers and correct our own biases, effectively turning our basic survival intelligence into profound discovery intelligence.
And that brings us to a really mind-bending realization about our modern era. Human intelligence is not a finish line. It is a launch pad. The mere fact that we have created artificial intelligence, machines that can process certain information way faster than we can, well, it isn't a sign of our end. It actually proves that our intelligence is a platform for building even more powerful thinking systems. We are, fundamentally, creators of thinking systems, constantly adding layer after layer from spoken language to writing to supercomputers and now to AI.
So, tying this all together as we wrap up this explainer, how did we actually become the smartest species? As you've seen, it wasn't just one single magical event. It was a compounding chain. Evolution gave us a flexible brain, forged under extreme pressure. Society taught us how to navigate each other and share that brain power. And culture amplified it all, allowing us to pass wisdom across thousands of generations and turn our raw, basic intelligence into a globe-spanning civilization. We didn't win by being the strongest. We won by becoming the absolute best at adapting and changing. We have covered a ton of ground today in this explainer. But if human intelligence truly is a launch pad, then the most important question isn't just how we got here, it's what we are going to build next. Are we wise enough to actually guide the very technologies we've created to externalize our minds? I would absolutely love to hear your theory on what makes humans unique and where you think this fragile little ape is heading next. Let me know your thoughts, and thanks so much for learning with me today.